guys, welcome to my tutorial for the IAMFREEDOM Awards first challenge, which is Sculpt versus Strobe, which is basically a fancy way of saying highlighting versus contouring. I decided to do a character makeup, as you might have noticed. It might look kind of extreme because it is, but you can definitely use the techniques that I've used all through this tutorial in everyday kind of looks or going out looks and stuff. Just, you know, use a bit of a light hand and maybe don't stick as many gems on your face. And the idea for this kind of came about that I was just wondering what would happen if you stuck gems where you'd usually highlight and contour. So, we'll find out. Let's go! First I'm taking the Pro Studio Oil Control Base Anti-Shine Lotion. And I'm just applying that with clean fingers over my clean skin, and this will just help to block any oiliness from my natural skin coming through onto the foundation and breaking it up and making it look a mess. Next I'm taking the concealer palette in the shade light to medium, and I've mixed up a shade quite close to my own skin tone, and I'm just using a small brush to dab that over any areas that I want to add extra coverage to. So that's spots, any areas of redness, any scars that I've got, anything like that, just cover them up. Next I just take a clean finger and dab over anywhere that I've applied the concealer. I prefer to use a finger instead of a brush just because I find that a brush kind of moves the concealer about too much, and that way you can end up with a lot less coverage than you actually want to have. Next I'm taking the Pro Matte Longwear Foundation in the shades 6 and 12, and I've just mixed those up to match my neck actually, because I've applied a lot of fake tan before doing this tutorial, so it's a little bit darker than usual. And I'm just patting that into the skin with a blending sponge, which I've dampened with the Freedom Fixing Spray. I usually use a fixing spray to dampen the blending sponges just because they add a little bit of extra staying power, and that is definitely what you want. At least it's what I want, because I have oily skin, and foundation tends not to last on me very well. Speaking of which, actually, this foundation lasted a ridiculously long time. Like, I applied it, went on a car journey for 1.5 hours, and then went walking/hiking for 1.5 hours to get to the waterfall where we filmed, and it was still in place. Next I'm taking the concealer palette again, and I've mixed up a shade just to use underneath my eyes where they're very dark. I'm using the end of a brush, but obviously you can use a brush the way it's actually meant to be used. And I'm using that blending sponge again just to dab away the excess and blend it out a little bit. Now I'm taking the Pro Sculpt palette in the cream formula, there's also a powder one, and I'm using the pale yellowy shade just on the high points of my face, and I'm applying that using a flat foundation brush. I then use the damp blending sponge again just to blend out the edges and make sure it looks seamless and fairly natural. I say fairly because it is a costume makeup, so I wasn't too fussed if it was a little bit crazy. We didn't get any setting powders or anything in our kit, but like I say, I have oily skin, so if I go without powder, my foundation basically lasts about 2 seconds, so I just used a mix of talc and cosmetic silica to powder my face. Next I'm taking this bronzer, which smells amazing. It smells like hot chocolate powder, and I kind of want to eat it even though I really know that I shouldn't. And I'm just using that to add some colour to my face. I'm not using this in the way that you technically should use bronzer on the highlights, on the high points even of the face. But like I say, I'm just using it for an extra bit of colour and warmth. Next I'm taking the Pro Sculpt palette in the powder formula, and I'm using the palest shade under the cheekbones just to start hollowing them out a bit and adding a bit of definition. I'm using a tapered, fluffy blending brush for this because I find that you can get a really natural, seamless kind of blend with these type of brushes. Especially with powder products, they work really well. You'll notice as well that I don't take any contour up over my forehead like you'll see a lot of people doing tutorials, and that's because I have the world's smallest forehead, so I don't really want to make it any smaller. After I've used the lightest shade, I use the medium shade in the same kind of areas, except I don't go out as far, and this is what's going to give you kind of that natural shadow slash gradient effect. Last of all, I use the darkest shade in the palette just on the very, very outer edges of the cheekbone and buff that away as much as I can so that it doesn't look too patchy. Then I started to do a nose contour. Again, I wasn't really fussed about this looking supernatural or anything because it was a contour, a character even makeup, so I didn't blend it out around the edge of the nose, and I kept a kind of a harsh line going on. But obviously you can blend this out as much or as little as you like for whatever look you're doing. Next I take the pale powder from the Pro Strobe palette. I keep calling it Pro Sculpt, but I think it's called Pro Strobe. And I'm using that just to sharpen out underneath the edges of the contour. And I'm applying it to the high points of the face as well, so I'm just kind of adding a little bit more definition to the cheekbone, the top of the cheekbones, just underneath that temple, and running it across. You'll see a lot of drag queens do this, apply it kind of this way along the cheekbones as well. Mermaid drag. Let's make that a thing. And I'm just using a fluffy brush to blend that out a little bit. Now I'm taking the Pro Eye Primer and applying that to the eye area. If you watch my unboxing, you'll know that I was kind of curious about this, and I'm happy to report back that it's actually pretty good. Then I take concealer and put it underneath my brows and blend that out with my fingers, and then I go back with the Pro Strobe powder palette and use the palest shade over the top of that concealer and also down onto my lids. This palette actually works really, really well for eyeshadow, and I keep using it as eyeshadow recently. And I'm using the darker contour shades just to define the crease. I'm doing a little bit of a different shape today. I'm making it darker kind of towards the outer edges, but most of the colour is towards the nose instead of towards the outer eye like I usually do. On the outer eye I'm using the darkest brown shade and just buffing that in and out. And also a little bit under the eyes. Next I'm taking the blush palette in the shade Peach and Baked, and I'm just applying that to the apples of the cheeks and then blending out over the top of that contour in a kind of an 80s fashion, because you know, I like the 80s blush. And I'm also applying that above the temples and kind of buffing it into the hairline. I just think adding just a little bit of colour adds an extra element to this and helps kind of bring out the contour shades and the darker shades. Next I'm taking that peachy shade onto the tip of the nose and blending it into the nose contour too. And on the outer edges of the eye makeup. And back with that pale powder, doing that drag technique again. Just buffing it away. And on the high points of the face again. Now I'm taking the brow pomade in the shade Chocolate, and I'm starting to do my eyebrows. I start doing the tail first and then work my way inwards. I went for a straighter kind of shape than I usually do because I naturally have really arched eyebrows, but I wanted to straighten them out a bit because straighter brows tend to look a lot more youthful, and I wanted my mermaid character to look kind of fresh-faced and young. As I get towards the inner part of the brow, I use less and less product so that you get kind of a little bit of a graduation. Gradation? That's the word I want. A gradation into the rest of the brow. Now I'm taking the anti-shine fixing spray, and I love this stuff. It's ridiculously good, and I'm misting that over the face just to get rid of any powdery effect and to keep my makeup on as long as I want it to stay on. Now I'm taking the highlighter in the shade Glow, which is a white gold, and also the Pro Strobe Cream, And I'm actually mixing these together because I really wanted a cream highlight because I'm obsessed with cream highlights. It's what I use all the time. So I mix them together to make a cream highlight. And I'm just patting that along the cheekbones and dabbing it out with my fingers. You have to work really, really fast with this because the strobe cream dries insanely fast, and otherwise you'll get kind of a streaky effect, which you probably don't want. That's going on all the high points of the face, and I'm just blending it out with my fingers. Then I'm taking a tiny bit of blush and just blending out the bottom of the highlight on my cheekbones. Now I'm going in with a dry brush with the glow highlight over the top of everywhere that we've just highlighted with the cream, and this will just make that highlight pop an insane amount. Like, it's basically reflective. I love this highlight so much, it's just insane. Now I'm taking Space Luxe lipstick, which is a highly reflective gold, and I'm applying that to my face because, you know, why not put lipstick on your actual face? And I'm blending that out with my fingers, and I've just applied it to the very, very kind of the highest points of the highest points, if that makes sense, of my face, and I'm blending it out with my fingers. I just thought it added a little extra element of colour, and I kind of like accents and metallic shades, and I'm just setting that with the glow highlight and blending it out with a little bit of blush again. Now I'm using the cream highlight that we've mixed up underneath the tail of the eyebrow, and I'm setting that with the glow highlight again. I just like to add a little bit of a discreet graphic element to this. Next we're starting the fun part, also known as the slightly tedious part, where you have to kind of just go with the flow. Sticking gems on your face. I start off by defining what I call anchor points, which are the kind of the central points of where you're going to have the gems, and I like to try and make these kind of symmetrical on either side in placement. So I've done them underneath the cheekbones on the outer edges, and you want to use the biggest gems that you have on the very outer edges. If you use bigger gems on the outer perimeter of your face, it kind of adds a framing element. And it also just looks more natural when the smaller gems kind of make their way inwards to your face. Other anchor points I did were on my cheekbones, or the top of my cheekbones. Just get them fairly symmetrical, a couple of stones. And along the top of my head as well, just kind of where that peachy shade and the gold meet. I'm using eyelash glue to stick this on, by the way. You can use any brand, or if you want it to last in water, if you're doing an actual mermaid shoot, I'd recommend using something like spirit gum instead. Then I just kind of build out from these anchor points using first medium-sized gems and then smaller gems as you get further towards the inner part of your face. And I do a few gems kind of splintering off from the main group because I just think it looks a lot more natural and organic. And I kind of wanted this to look like, you know, when barnacles and things grow on shipwrecks under the sea and they kind of all splinter out across the hull or the deck or whatever. That's kind of the vibe that I was trying to go for with this. When it comes to the eyes, I didn't want them to be symmetrical because I was trying to go for an organic feel, and I just thought that the asymmetry had a much more organic vibe. I also did a few small gems going down just the top of the nose. I then used some volumizing mascara and applied that, well, just the way that you apply mascara. And obviously pulling a mascara face as well, because we all have one. And then I applied some false lashes in a kind of natural, small style. I didn't apply these on the actual mermaid shoot at the waterfall though, because I was going to submerge my head underwater, and I thought they'd probably just come off if I did that. Next I'm taking the lipstick in the shade Naked Beauty, which is a peachy shade, and just applying that to the lips. And that's our look complete. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, especially the mermaidy bits, because they were really outside of my comfort zone. I don't do any model-y type stuff and I kind of don't like attention on me, so it was kind of unnatural doing all this stuff at the waterfall, but it was really fun as well. There were also loads of people sat around eating sandwiches and watching us, but no one commented, which is very British. The next step for this contest is actually going to be up to you guys, because Freedom are running a public voting system, which means that you lot get to vote for your favourite looks and your favourite videos and decide who goes through to the next round. Voting is open from the 8th of July and will run until the 17th of July. So if you want to vote, then please do. You can do it on the Freedom website. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!